Hey, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of The Art of Making Things Happen with me, Steve Sims. And today I've got Dan Nicholson on the show. I've known Dan for quite a few years. He's got a book out, Rigging the Game. Now, we're going to talk about how mindset, positions, showing up, knowing the game that you play in order to be able to accomplish the maximum from it. But I also want you to listen if you're possibly contemplating doing your own book. The structure of the way he released it, pre-sold it, got it set out there, you may want to use in your own game. So listen to the podcast, enjoy what Dan has to share with us, and then use it and emulate it for your business. Again, these are all here for you. They're there to benefit you. Use it and then action it. All right? All the best. Enjoy the show. Hey, Dan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Steve.
It's been quite a while since we hung out with each other.
It has been, a few years, definitely before COVID.
Yeah, I think everything was before COVID. The land that time forgot, pre-COVID. So, Look, we got a lot of mutual friends, a lot of weird whack jobs that go out and actually disrupt the planet. And I was actually chatting with Nick Peterson of the Wolf Den the other day, and he mentioned your book. And we ended up having a nice little conversation about rigging the game. And I want to know, why did you release a book?
There are a couple of different reasons why I released a book. One is just to prove that I could do it. That's part of my personality. Maybe we have that in common. I don't know. But there's a certain amount of let me just see if all this wacky stuff in my head actually works and if people are interested in it and I can get some feedback. I kind of like to, maybe I'm a masochist, but I kind of like an external scoreboard, if you will. And a book is almost the ultimate scorecard because you're going to get feedback one way or another, either in terms of reviews or no reviews because no one wants to buy it. So there's a scorecard element to it. That's the first part. The second part is I really believe in the content that I put into it. And I'm all about getting what you want on your terms without compromise. And to me, that's that's the essence of rigging the game. And I feel like there are a lot of charlatans out there who are trying to tell everyone that they need to be someone they're not. And like the one strategy that's going to change your whole life, and they're telling people that they need to conform. And I think it's total BS. I think you need to play your game, lean into what makes you unique. And that's a big message of the book, and I wanted to get that out into the world.
All right. We're going to go over the book itself, and anyone who's interested, we don't have to wait till the end. Go into Amazon, Rigging the Game. You can find it over there, Dan Nicholson. So it's easy to get, Rigging the Game, and the link will be below. Is this your first book?
It is. Yep.
How scary was it, or were you actually quite calm, cool, and ready?
I think there are phases to it. Part of my whole operating system decision making is I don't want to do something unless I have an idea what the results will be in advance, which again, this is part of rigging the game. So I did a bunch of things to pre-sell the book. And so I knew going into it, I had already sold about 5,000 copies before I even started writing the book. So I had an idea, okay, I've got enough that I'll hit some bestseller lists and all of that. And so that took a lot of the piss out of it, if you will. But then ultimately, when D-Day comes, you put it out there, you kind of hold your breath to go, what are people actually going to say? And I have been overwhelmed with just the positivity of and the reactions and all the emails and tweets and text messages and et cetera. So it's been awesome.
How long did it take you to write it?
From the day that I started till I actually went live was about 2.5 years.
Right.
It wasn't actually each day for 2.5 years writing it.
Sure.
There was some kind of starts and stops and periods where I got a little bit spun out.
All right. So that's pretty much the normal. I think I took, I had a ghostwriter, so they got to do all the stuff that I didn't want to do. So I was quite happy there. Now, you sold 5,000 copies in advance. I think that would pique a few people's ears that listen to this podcast. How did you go about doing that and setting that up? I know there's different strategies, but what was yours?
Yeah, mine, one of my principles. So in the book, I teach this operating system or just way of thinking to rig the game, get what you want on your terms without compromise. And a couple of the principles I use, one is I call it take a MicroStep, which is basically if I don't have any data, which when I'm writing a book, I have no data. Does anyone want to read this? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a narcissist and think I have really good ideas. So what's the smallest step I can take to get data back to see if anyone will want to buy it? So that was started off with a simple a post on social media and a simple email. And in advance, I said, I need at least 100 people to comment and say they want this book. If they say yes, then I'm going to set up a checkout page. So I hadn't even had a checkout page or any of that. And then I hit that marker, set up a checkout page, and got a couple hundred sales on the front end. I thought, okay, well, is that enough for me to really, again, justify the time and effort? And at the time, I was thinking about starting.
And this was all before you had even started writing the first page.
I hadn't written anything other than a couple bullet points.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay. A lot of people panic. What you did was you gamified it. Is there a game here? Do you want to play in this game? Yep. Great. All right. Now I'll construct. Love that. Please carry on.
Because my fear is always I'm going to spend a bunch of time. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to really commit to it. And so if I'm going to do this book, I know I'm going to obsess about it, which is why it took me 2.5 years from the time people paid to the time I got the book out there. So I know I'm going to just grind on it to some extent. And so I started thinking about, I have an app called the Certainty app. I was trying to figure out how can I get more people to use this app. And it's all the principles in the book are connected to what I teach in the app. And there's a bunch of backstory to this, but I decided to create this certification program called Certified Certainty Advisor. Nick Peterson is part of that business with me, the two of us. We have one other person. And so how I'll rig this is I said, okay, if you want to apply to be in the certification program, you need to pre-order at least 100 copies of the book. And if you get accepted into the certification program, we'll apply what you paid for the pre-ordered copies of the book as a down payment towards the certification. So that got 20 plus people did that. And that created a bunch of momentum where it's like, okay, now we sold 2,000 plus copies. That leads to some FOMO and we kind of engineered it where I had people tweet about and post another, hey, I just bought Dan Nicholson's book. And so it kind of created a viral element to it. And that sold the remaining kind of 3,000 copies or so.
So you sold a book before actually writing a book on the engagement that they needed to do that to get the certification. I love that. But now you've got people buying the book. Now you've got people vested in it. Now you've got people talking about it. Now you've got to write it. Was that a bit scary? Because a lot of people write a book, and if they don't sell it, they can go, well, no one knew about it, so I'll be sure. You've now got 5,000 people out there expecting a bloody masterpiece. Did that actually create some issue for you?
I want to say yes, because that's the humble thing to say. But no, the honest answer is no, because I have been because what I'm writing about, I've been working on for 20 years.
Okay.
And it's like overnight. It's a couple years ago, my wife and I were watching, what's that Netflix show about money laundering? Ozark. We're watching Ozark. And it was right around the time where I was doing better than I ever had. And she's like, you're not money laundering, are you? I'm like, no, of course I'm not money laundering. No. It just took me 15 years to be an overnight success. It's like you just caught up to the work I've been doing for 15, 20 years. So truly what I wrote about in the book, I've been working on my entire career. And so it's sort of the culmination of work that I know I've tested it across thousands of business owners at this point. And so I felt good about it, and I put in the work. I really put in the work. And then I showed it to my wife, and she's my strongest advocate. She's also probably gives me the best, we'll call it feedback. And once I knew that she liked it, I was like, okay, this passes her test as well. It's probably decent enough.
And did you do an audio version?
I do have an audiobook that just came out.
All right. Did you read it?
I didn't read the audiobook, but I have a bonus edition where me and my mentor, Randy Massengale, are after each chapter, we talk about all the principles, etc.
Right.
So sort of a professional narrator who's going to read it, and then there's myself and my mentor who talk about the concepts.
Gotcha. I did the audio on mine, and I have to admit, I did the first one for bluefishing, and it was probably one of the worst experiences of my life, being stuck in a little dark room for 2 days reading the book. And I vowed I would never do it again. And then bloody did go for stupid recently and went and did that. So it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've spoken about the behind the book, building it up, pre-selling it. You wrote the book. Why? Give me the real strong, why did you write this book?
Because I've been fascinated with why it seems like some people always seem to win and some people lose. Like what is the essence of that? I mean, you probably know people who went all in, burn the boats, got success in one business, then they do another business, they go all in and they blow themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you got somebody else like myself who does all the research. Like I'm the academic type. I do all the research, and sometimes I have great success, and then the next time I do all the research, I blow myself up. I got more failure. Like I said, it only took me 15 years to be an overnight success. And so I got really, really fascinated with what is really the not secret, but what is the method, the operating system that leads to consistent winning. And that sort of research is what went into the book, which is ultimately like, how do we rig the game, which is get what we want on our terms without compromise under any circumstance. Right now we're in this state of economic turmoil, and people ask the question, well, what do I do in a recession? And I go, well, you should be asking a totally different question. How do I win in any economic situation? Right? Not just how do I win during a recession? And so that's kind of the essence of, to me, what I write about in Rigging the Game, what we teach in our certification, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you think that a lot of people, you say there about how do I survive in a recession, or how do I, win in a recession? Do you find a lot of people focus on the negativity? And when you focus on the negativity straight away, you're negative. You ask a question about a bad problem while in a bad place, in a bad mood. You're looking for something to get you out of that. Yet, as you say, if you just flip the script slightly and go, hey, how can I control and benefit from any economic situation? 100%. It puts you in a more encouraging. Isn't the first problem how your head reads the situation?
Yeah, I think you just hit on a really important distinction that separates those who seemingly get results because of luck and those who consistently win. And it starts with, did you properly characterize the problem to begin with? Like, what are you actually trying to get? We're not just trying to get through this recession. We're trying to live the life that we want on our terms. And that's just a slightly different problem. And it may seem like nuance to some folks, but that nuance, that distinction is where the magic is, in my opinion. So you have to frame the question the right way. And then the second piece to that, and this is, again, one of the underpinnings of what I believe very strongly is that we are all biased as humans. You look at some of the neuroscience, whether you want to read something like Thinking Fast and Slow, you want to study Dr. Andrew Huberman, you want to meet Dr. Jeff Spencer, of course, mutual acquaintance of both of us.
Oh, yeah.
And in all of those places, it all comes back to, you can use Dr. Jeff's language, human mindset. Hey, there's a part of us that's hard-coded in our DNA that we're biased. And so once we understand that we're biased, then we can start to build systems that account for the fact that we're biased. Most of us like to do the hand pointing thing. That's like, and that's a lot of social media is like, that person over there is biased. I'm not biased, but that person is biased. It's like, no, both of you are. And once you recognize that you're biased, you start building systems, thoughts, mindsets around accounting for that, accounting for the fact. Some days I'm going to be negative. Some days I'm going to be positive. Some days I'm going to get stuck in some ruminating thoughts. Like, what do I do about it?
So when did you learn this? Because what you're saying, and I certainly don't. Like, you're a research hound. You're a perfectionist. You're very articulate in the way you explain this. I certainly don't want to stupefy it, but it's primitive knowledge and frame set that people look at a way of avoiding. When did it hit you that, hey, this is simple stuff that you just need to act differently in order for it to benefit you? When was your, come to aha moment?
I think I'm actually glad that you said it's simple stuff, because it's incredibly simple. Like, I think everything you read in my book, you go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's simple, but damn, it's not easy. It's not easy to operate consistently. It's not the things that we teach. It's not easy to do it in practice. What I start realizing is just pattern recognition. So part of my career is that I'm a CPA. I don't like to tell people that, because then they're like, okay, so you're a super boring person. Probably the most boring person I'm going to talk to today. But I only mention it because taxes, okay? Taxes is actually paying the least amount of tax is about modifying your behavior. Understand the system, modify your behavior to get the results that you want. What do I mean by that? Well, you know what? In my previous life, when I worked with big corporations, the Microsofts and stuff of the world, they pay the same tax rate no matter who's in office, because they just adjust how they're behaving to take advantage of whatever the new incentives are. So like, okay, that's interesting, and show people how to modify their behavior to pay less in tax. Like, okay, I want to get healthy. Well, I guess I got to change my behavior to get healthy because I'm eating a bunch of crap and I'm not exercising. That's obvious. Doing better in marketing. Well, I'm not being consistent. I probably got to understand the system, change my behavior. And so you go on and on and on through all these different domains, and you realize, like, hey, once I understand the system, I either change the system or I change the behavior to get the outcome that I want. And it's kind of all the same in every domain. For me, unfortunately, I just have to get punched in the face a few times before I realize it.
And as human beings evolve, and there's all this kind of like Darwin, and you've got to adapt and you change and you evolve, we don't actually like change. Human beings are weird. We like the music we like because it's pretty damn repetitive. Mm-hmm. We like the styles we like because, look at me in a black t-shirt forever. I know so many people that love their car until the next year the new facelift comes out, and they think it's the ugliest bloody thing on the planet until 6 months later they've got it and they think it's brilliant. We don't like change. Mm-hmm. So have we first got to educate ourselves on how to accept change before we can accept what the actual change is, whether it be in ourselves or what we're facing?
I think the most important first step is what we would call playing your game. Know yourself. There's this ancient Sun Tzu quote, Art of War, know yourself, know your enemy. You can fight 100 battles without peril. So to me, everything comes back to know yourself and play to your strengths. So I'll just give you an example of what I mean by that, because it's kind of vague. It's like, cool, Dan, thank you for that really vague overview. We talk in the book. I talk about this exercise about how you can figure out your game by looking at your favorite sport or hobby growing up. Okay, my favorite sport was basketball, and as far as most people are concerned, I was like the tall kid, but I'm not tall. 6'2", but I'm not tall enough to be like a professional athlete as far as basketball is concerned. But I was always a tall kid, which means tall kid goes under the hoop. And it also made sense because I wasn't particularly coordinated, and I was pretty good at running people over. It's like, put me in a straight line, I'm good. Have me go around people, not so much. I had a nickname of the bulldozer when I was a soccer player. But what I really wanted to do was be a shooting guard, have the ball, take the last shot. But I'm not the most athletically gifted person, so I got to rely on hustle and dive on the ball and all that sort of stuff. That is my style in life and business too. I want to have the ball in my hands. I want to put up a lot of shots. I'm willing to take risks that are calculated. I'm willing to lose the game because it's on me. But I'm also tend to hustle, right? And so that's my game. And when I'm doing that in business, that's when I'm getting the most amount of success. It's when I'm the happiest as well. When I'm playing someone else's game, when I'm passing the ball too much, when I'm being passive, it's when I start to blow myself up. So I think that the most upside that anyone can have is get more in congruence with their unique disposition than trying to conform. And so the changes are actually getting more back to who you are rather than all the stuff you've been doing to be someone else. I think we spend a tremendous amount of time trying to copy other people and trying to conform to their strategies instead of trying to play our game. And
do you think social's done it?
What's that? I think social's been a massive part about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's going to change?
I'm certainly trying to start a movement around playing your game. I think because dopamine is the molecule of more, that we're so hardwired for more in everything that we do, that it puts us in a position where we think we have to copy other people. But this is just a gut punch that I had when I thought, well, what's the reason why I got into business? And Steve, what was ultimately the reason you got into business? You wanted to define your own future?
I think as a kid, everyone gets in a business because they want to be filthy rich until they realize that, that doesn't happen quickly. Right. But I think parallel with or moving past the, hey, I want to be stinking rich, I think it was the freedom. I think that was what I wanted to be able to rejoice in the decisions I made and then can cry when I made the bad ones.
Sure. And I think that what you just said, I think I would venture to guess 80% or more people would say a version of that same thing. We want freedom. So then what do? We ask everybody else to tell us what we should do. Hold on, I thought you wanted freedom, but you're out there asking everybody else what you should do. And the problem with that is most of the questions people are asking are preferences to begin with. So only you have the answer when it comes to the preference-based questions that you're asking. And so it's this weird thing that we do where it's like we want success so bad, but we want the freedom. But at the same point, we're seeking consensus and asking everyone else just to tell us what to do. It's weird to me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense in a strange, almost frightening manner. Let's fast forward 2 years. What do you hope the book's done for you and for the reader?
I hope that for people who read the book, it gives them permission to lean into who they are and to their unique disposition. Understand that in everything you do, it needs to get you closer to what you want, and gives people permission to actually, for once, get really clear on what they want. I call it creating your solvable problem. Solvable problem is turning all the things that you want from life into sort of a equation that you can actually figure out. Here's how much more I need to make. The app I alluded to earlier, the Certainty app, that actually does that for folks. They put in all their goals and their resources, and it tells them almost like Google Maps, here's how much more you need to make to live the life that you want on the timeline that you've set. So I hope that it gives people permission to play their game. I mean, Steve, you know a bunch of billionaires, they're all eccentric, right? But they were weird before they were eccentric.
Yeah.
They were weird kids. And then they became billionaires. And now we just call them eccentric. But ultimately, they got to where they were. Part of the reason why they got to where they were is that they weren't trying to be somebody else. And so I really hope that I give permission for people to do that, accomplish that. My end goal is for people to want to use the app and learn more about our certification program. That's my long-term selfish goal.
How can they find out about the app?
Yeah, they just go to certaintyapp.com, and you can sign up for free and set up your solvable problem from there.
I love that. I like the way you can set up your solvable problem. So straight away, you've got a positive edge on it. That's absolutely fantastic. Rigging the Game is on Amazon. Dan, can anyone follow you? Is there a best way for them to follow you?
Yeah, riggingthegame.com is probably the, when technology is not conspiring against me, that's the best place to go, because we got all the links to anything that I'm involved in, whether it's social media links, book, businesses that I'm a partner in, so on and so forth. So yeah, riggingthegame.com.
Perfect. Dan, thank you very much for spending the time with us this afternoon and having a great conversation on the latest podcast. I really appreciate it. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Always fun.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast. And remember, these are done for you. If you like them, subscribe, share them around. But if you don't like them, send me an email to ask@stevedsims.com and you can tell me what I need to do to make this the most dynamic podcast you listen to. Anyway, make sure whatever you learned from the last podcast, you actually do something with. Without action, it's just a bunch of people blowing air. Have a good time. Until next time. Bye.